Saving America one entrepreneur at a time, it's the Biz Rap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan.
It's Biz Rap Radio, the show that celebrates entrepreneurs and small business with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan.
And welcome to another edition of Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're doing great out there and having an absolutely wonderful day. If you're new to Biz Rap Radio, we are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. Great guests and topics in our shows. We've talked about everything from marketing to employees to motivation. How do you motivate employees? How do you do social media? Legal issues? How to more effectively manage your time. I mean, the number of topics we've just talked about have been absolutely endless, it seems. In addition to that, we've had some great guests on the show. We've had entrepreneurs, people who've built businesses. We've had entrepreneurs trying to build businesses, and I really love those stories. It just is so much of what I consider to be part of the American spirit, that entrepreneurial drive, if you will, the desire to go out there and build a business and make something out of it, and perhaps establish a legacy that you can leave to your family, to your children. One of the things we've talked about on the show in the past, but I'll mention it again because it's kind of dear to my heart, is what I consider a sad situation in America, that you have people build businesses and then their children go off, get college degrees, and the children want to become engineers or attorneys or, I don't know, university professors, whatever it is, and they don't want to continue the family legacy, the family business. I think it's so sad, and I think we see that a lot with immigrant people, immigrants who come to the United States, and maybe they come, they don't have great educations from their own country, but they're industrious, they're hardworking, and they start a business of some sort, and they actually build it up. They build a successful business. Of course, what they want is for their children to have the education that they did not get, and so they send their kids, they scrimp and they save money, and they send their kids off to university, and then the kids go and find a profession, and they become attorneys or engineers, as I said, and those kids don't want to take over that family business, and I think that's sad. I love the legacy and the idea that you can pass a business on down from generation to generation, and that I can deal with the current owner, and perhaps my children can deal with the children of the current owner, and I don't know, maybe my grandchildren will deal with the grandchildren of the current owner. And I think we saw that in America in years past, 200 years ago, 150 years ago, in the founding parts of our nation, where businesses were passed down, whether it be the local hotel or the local restaurant or some kind of small manufacturing business, but it doesn't seem to happen as much as it used to, and I think that is really, really sad. I would just love to see if we couldn't encourage more of that. In fact, I'm just makes me think, because it's, as my listeners know, I am a university professor in addition to an entrepreneur and a business person and a business consultant. I'm thinking, I don't know if there is a major called family business, but I'm thinking that would be a great major for a university to add to their business school. The family business. You get a degree, a bachelor's degree in family business, and go back. You go to school, and then you go back and you help mom and dad run the business. And I say mom and dad because most family businesses I know, it's not just dad running the business. Mom is involved as well, and as my listeners know, I do consulting work. I'm doing some consulting work right now for a company. Started in 1949. It is a family business. A mom and dad are still involved in the business. Dad is just turned 80. Mom's in her 70s. The CEO of the company, he's in his 60s. The son-in-law owns a sister company, and there's a half a dozen family members and extended family members that work in the business. And I just love to see that. I think it's so wonderful. And I hope they don't make the mistake of trying to sell the business off because the next generation is not interested. So anyway, there it is. Check it out, bizrap.org, bizrap.org. You can find out more about this radio show. Listen to all of our archived shows. By the way, some of the guests we've had on our shows, just people with wonderful ideas about things that you can do in your business. And they share these ideas basically free of charge. Yeah, all you have to do is listen to the show, have your pen handy, and write down these great ideas that people are willing to share with you on how they have achieved success in their businesses, or how they work with businesses to achieve success. Every show, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 great ideas you can implement in your business right away to help you make more money, or to launch your business if you're thinking about launching your business. And if you go to the websites of our guests, many of them have free stuff on their website that you can download. White papers, information, there's videos on their sites, there's all sorts of things that you can use to get an education. You don't need to go to MBA school and spend $100,000 getting your MBA. Believe me, first of all, a lot of the stuff that's written in those textbooks, while interesting, is comes from academia. And I think there is some value in that. I wouldn't argue that point. I think academia has its place, but I really think that real life, do-it-yourself learning is underrated. I think you can learn tons and tons of stuff just by being a person who pays attention to what other people say and what other people do. Take advantage. The old adage that if it doesn't cost you anything, it's not worth anything, I don't think is true. I think there are free things that you can get, courtesy of people who are willing to share, and I think those free things can be very valuable. Don't discount them. As a business consultant, one of the things that frustrates me from time to time is, I do charge for my services, and I charge a pretty good fee. That's how I earn a living, in addition to being a university professor. But sometimes I will give advice to people, and I don't charge them for it. It might be because I don't think that they're a client that is suitable for me, or it might be that perhaps they're an early-stage company, an entrepreneurial company, and they don't have any money. They're just starting to get their feet wet in terms of building their business. They don't have the capital resources, and they can't afford to pay a consultant. So I will, what the heck, I'll listen to their story, and I'll use my years and years of wisdom and experience, having worked with well over 100 management teams and companies over the years. And I'll give them some advice that is tried and true. It's not from a book. This is I've been in the trenches. I've seen what happens in businesses. And so I give them advice. I tell them, okay, this is what you should do, or this is how you should approach the situation. And then, meet up with them a month later, a couple of months later, at a cocktail reception or some event I'm attending, and ask them how things are going, only to discover they not only did not pay attention to the advice that I gave them, but in fact, they turned around and did the very opposite. So it wasn't just, well, I won't take Mike's advice, but I'll do exactly the opposite of what Mike says. And it's cost them. It's set them back in their business plan, their business strategy. In many cases, cost them a lot of money. And so, and I think part of the reason is they say, well, I didn't pay for this. I didn't pay for Mike's advice, so is he really giving me the right advice? Who knows? Maybe they went out and paid somebody else and they gave them different advice. But don't discount the value of free advice, particularly if it's coming from somebody who has a resume, somebody who has actually experience in the world in which you're trying to operate. And that's my advice. Get out there, get all the free advice you can. And that doesn't mean you should just blindly take it, but consider it, think about it. And more than likely, if you get some free advice from somebody who's got the experience, you'll find that advice can be very, very worthwhile. This is Biz Rap Radio. I'm your host, Mike Manahan. I've got kind of a free-flowing show going today, but I do want to talk about something for the rest of the show that's been requested by some of our listeners, and that's raising capital. How do you raise money for your business? Are there secrets to it? Are there tricks to it? How can you raise money? Well, we're going to be talking about that right after these messages. Welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thanks for sticking with us today. If you just joined us for this segment of the show, this is Biz Rap Radio. We are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. We're here hopefully helping small businesses and entrepreneurs do what they need to do, grow their businesses, make more money, and be more successful as entrepreneurs. If you look at the statistics, most people in the United States actually work for small businesses. And as we pull out of the recession, most of the new jobs were created by small businesses. And you want to keep that in mind. Small businesses are great things. I salute all of you out there listening who own your own business. And I salute all of you who are thinking about starting a business. And if you're not thinking about starting a business, I suggest maybe you consider it. Even if you have a job, you don't have to quit your job. Many people have side businesses. What are you going to do? Go home and watch 3 hours of TV every night? Instead, maybe create a small business on the side and go home, spend a couple hours after dinner working on your small business, or work on it on the weekends on Saturday or Sunday. Can be very rewarding, and who knows, if you're successful with your small business, you just might end up replacing the income that you have from your job and working full-time on your small business. And maybe one day it will no longer be a small business, but maybe one day it will be a big business, and then you can consider yourself a real success. Something I want to talk about, a number of listeners have texted me, called me, emailed me, and said, Mike, why don't you talk more on your show about raising money? They say, you have all these experts on your show. People talk about marketing and websites and product development and branding, but you don't talk a lot about raising capital, and you should. So, okay, I'm taking their advice. I'm going to talk about raising capital. If you have not heard of it, I did write the book, Secrets to Raising Capital. How to get the money you need for your business the fastest and easiest way possible. You can buy it at Amazon. But actually, I've got a special offer going on. The first 5 people that email me at mike@bizrap.org, that's MIKE at bizrap.org. The first 5 people send me, just say you want a copy of my book, include your mailing address, and I'll mail you a copy out. But the Secrets to Raising Capital really is, in my opinion, one of the definitive guides on how to get the money that you need if you're trying to raise money to start your business. And I'm going to just cover some of the things that I cover in that book, because the book, I think, really does an extremely good job of it. And so let's kind of just start at the beginning. Look, if you're out there raising money for your business, the first thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to articulate your story. You need to be able to tell people what business you are in. Now, that may sound like a pretty simple thing to do. Of course, you know what business you're in or what business you're trying to be in, but really, it is not that simple. I have many, many times sat down with somebody and talked to them and say, okay, tell me about your business. and for 15, 20, 25 minutes, they will talk on about their business, but they will never really get down to what their business is. And what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing is you have to be able to tell very succinctly certain things about your business. First of all, who are your customers? Who do you sell to? And everyone in the world is just not a suitable answer to that. You need a target market. You need a beachhead group of customers that you sell to. Secondly, how do you get your product to market? There's many different ways you can get a product to market. There's more ways than ever. Are you going to go retail through a big box retailers like Walmart or Target? Are you going to sell over the internet? Are you going to sell through multi-level marketing? Are you going to use infomercials? Are you going to use stocking distributors? Are you going to use third-party independent sales reps? What is your methodology for getting your product to a place where customers, your product and or service, to a place where customers can buy it? Thirdly, what problem do you solve? What is the benefit that your product or service carries that is going to entice people to pull out the dollars out of their pocket and give it to you? And finally, how do you charge for that product? What is your revenue model for that product? I mean, and there are varying revenue models. There's subscription models. There is membership models. There is individually priced models. There's bundled models. There's a host. There's advertising models. There's referral models. There's affiliate models. So there are many different revenue models, and so you need to be able to articulate these things very clearly and very succinctly, so that the person listening to you understands how you make money and why customers are going to buy your product. And again, sounds really simple. It's not easy to do, particularly if you've got your head in the weeds, as a lot of entrepreneurs do. They're so close to their business that they really fail to understand what somebody else who might be interested in investing in their business is really going to be looking for. Okay, so once you've answered some of these basic core questions, you need to develop a way to present that to an audience, and obviously there's a number of different ways. One is of course in the form of a written document of some sort. We've talked before on the show about business plans. In fact, we even had I think it was Gian, who is the publisher of a business plan writing software. You need some sort of a business plan. It doesn't need to be 50 pages long. But you need some sort of a document that describes what your business is, and in particular, a summary document is a good idea, because quite frankly, if you give somebody a 50-page business plan, they're not going to read it. But something that describes what your business does and how it does it in 1 or 2 pages, maybe 3 pages. You need some kind of a PowerPoint presentation. And sometimes you can substitute a written, say, Word document for a PowerPoint presentation, and you email somebody your PowerPoint presentation, and they kind of go through it. Really, you should have a couple of PowerPoint presentations. One is the one that somebody will review if you're not there talking to them, and the other PowerPoint is probably one that you would use if you are there talking to the individual. And what's the difference? Well, if you're there talking to the individual, you don't want too much information in your PowerPoint presentation, because you want people watching you. Now, of course, another thing that you can do is a video. Used to be expensive to create videos. It's not anymore. You can do it with most cell phones now. You can record a 2 or 3 minute video that describes what your business is all about and what you're trying to accomplish. And then finally, you need to practice the in-person oral pitch. This is the pitch that you give when you meet somebody casually. I don't know, maybe you go to one of those networking events, you bump into somebody, you're standing there with your glass of Chardonnay and a couple of greasy appetizers, and somebody says, well, tell me what you do. You need to be able to explain to them succinctly precisely what you do in terms of your business, what your product does, who you serve, and finally, what you're looking for. Are you looking for strategic partners? Are you looking for capital investment? What exactly are you looking for your business? And yeah, I know this sounds like the basics. This sounds like, oh, this is raising money 101. Yeah, it may be raising money 101, but I can tell you, having extensive experience in this field, many businesses or business owners that are trying to raise capital for their business are completely unprepared in terms of documentation and in terms of having thought out their business strategy and in terms of being able to explain it. So the very first thing you really have to do is you got to get your act together. You got to have that summary business plan, PowerPoint presentation. You got to develop an oral pitch. And by the way, test this stuff out on friends and people you know before you get in front of a serious investor, because your friends and people you know will tell you where you're going wrong or where your story doesn't make sense before you get in front of the investor. Because if the investor thinks you don't make sense, then that investor is not going to invest, and you just lost an opportunity to get some money. So get your story together. That's one lesson that you'll find in the book Secrets to Raising Capital, and explain in detail some of the things you need to do to get that information together and make sure it's in the format that it needs to be in order to sell your investment. This is Mike Manahan, your host, BizRap Radio. We're talking about how you raise money for your business, and we're going to be back right after these messages with more information on how to get the money you need for your business. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. Thanks again for joining me today. BizRap Radio is the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. And we've been talking today about raising money. And, I have a lot of experts on the show from time to time that talk about different subjects. But I actually am an expert in the field of raising money, and I actually wrote a book about it. It's called The Secrets to Raising Capital: How to Get the Money You Need for Your Business the Fastest and Easiest Way Possible. And you can buy that on Amazon.com and probably some other sources as well. I did make an offer in the last segment. I'll make it again. If you're looking for a copy of my book, send me an email, Mike, M-I-K-E, at bizrap.org. That's bizrap.org. And I will send out to you a free copy of my book. Include your mailing address in there. I'll mail you the copy. I'm going to make that offer for the first 5 people that send me an email. You'll get a free copy of my book. Happy to do so and hope you enjoy it. We talked in the last segment about being prepared for the money raise, which means knowing your story and knowing who your customers are, how you get your product to your customers, how you price your product, and what your product does that solves a problem for your customers. And you might also want to talk a little bit about competitive advantage, because you may have a product that for which there's an established market, and for which there's relatively predictable price, and for which there is demand. But if you've got 100 other companies trying to do exactly the same thing you're trying to do, that's going to be a problem. You're going to have competition, and investors are going to want to know, what is your competitive advantage? What are you doing differently than the other folks who are out there? So you've got your package ready. Now it's time to start talking to people. And there's no easy way to do this. Finding people to talk to in order to pitch your story on is a lot of work. But the good news is there is a large universe of people you could talk to, and you have to start to think about who would be the likely investors in your business. Now remember something: if you're an entrepreneurial venture, the banks are not the place you're going to go unless you've got a ton of real estate and you can put up your real estate as security. But the banks are not going to invest in an early stage venture, or many small businesses, particularly if you're not making money or you don't make much money. So you really need to go to either very specialized investors, either high net worth individuals, or institutional funds. These are funds that particularly specialize in investing in small business. And there's by the way, thousands of these funds across the United States. And then, of course, there are now some websites where you can go and you can post your particular opportunity, and people who might be visiting that website, what we call accredited investors. These are people who have the money and hopefully the savvy to invest intelligently. So you need to go out, you need to find people to invest in your business, whether it's an institutional investor or an individual. But of course, that is going to entail not just sending them, most likely, the information that you have already prepared, but actually having a meeting with those individuals. And it is really the meeting that makes or breaks the deal. Now, it may be one meeting, it may be numerous meetings, but at the end of the day, people are not going to put money into your business based upon what you write, just what you write on some pieces of paper or what's in a PowerPoint presentation. They need to meet you. They need to hear your story from your mouth. They need to have confidence that when they write a check to you, that you are going to act responsibly with their money. That is the key. So the minute you start to talk to people, you are putting on a performance to a certain degree. You are presenting not only your business's story, but you're presenting yourself as the person they need to trust to do the right thing with their cash. And so that means you really have to be prepared for that. You cannot be unprepared. And there's a number of things that I recommend that you do. First of all, is kind of practice telling your story in front of people. You can't just jump up right off the bat and tell your story the very first time. You need to practice it so it rolls off your tongue comfortably. Make sure when you are talking to people about your business that you look them in the eye. This is particularly important if you're presenting in front of a group. Maybe you're in a conference room table. You're sitting around a conference room table at some institutional investor or some fund, and there's 4 or 5 people in the room listening to your story. You can't be looking at your computer screen and your PowerPoint presentation. You have to be looking at your audience. Now, once you finish your presentation, and keep your presentation succinct. Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to use a PowerPoint presentation, and that's fine, but one of the purposes of the PowerPoint presentation is to keep you as the presenter on track. If you've got 12 slides in your deck, as we call them, your investor deck, then those are the 12 topics you're going to talk about. And, if you say, okay, I'm going to have talk for, let's say, 2 minutes per slide, you got 12 slides, that's a 24-minute presentation. That's just about perfect. So that PowerPoint helps keep you on track when you're presenting to people, because without the structure of a PowerPoint presentation, a lot of people have the tendency to wander and start to get sidetracked, and they lose the opportunity to press home their story and why their story is an excellent investment. Now, once your presentation is finished, probably the most important part of meeting somebody in person starts, and that is the point at which you've completed your presentation and the audience starts to ask questions. How you handle questions in a face-to-face presentation is critical in getting funding for your business. And this, by the way, is the place where I see entrepreneurs time and time and time again absolutely blow the opportunity. So you're going to come across some different characters in that question stage, and I'm going to go over each one of these. The first one is the guy I call the questionator. he is the person, he's got a million questions. And by the way, 90% of his questions are completely irrelevant to your discussion. The guy likes to hear his own voice, and if you, for instance, you say, well, where are you going to manufacture your product? And you say, well, I'm going to manufacture in China. They'll say, well, have you considered Hong Kong? An irrelevant question, and it's kind of a show-offy thing to do. And by the way, if you had said you were going to manufacture in Hong Kong, his immediate response would be, well, why not in China? And it's impossible to answer the questionator's questions to his satisfaction. And so the whole idea is to get on to the next question from somebody else who's more legitimate as quickly as possible. And you can waste a lot of time, valuable time, when you could be pitching your deal, answering these stupid questions from the questionnator. So sometimes the best strategy is just to say, you know what, why don't we speak after the meeting, and I'd very much like to talk to you about some of your ideas. But just be careful of that. The second guy to watch out for, I call him I'm the Man. And what he will do is he will ask you a question. Let's say you're in the pet industry, and I don't know, you make bird cages, and he'll ask you, oh, well, you're in the pet industry. Do you know Sam, good old Sam Levinson? Now, back in 1997, when I was with our Richard Peabody, we raised old Sam $25 million. And really what he wants to do, I'm the Man, is do all the talking and tell a bunch of stories. But the problem is his stories are eating up your time, and they're eating up the valuable time you have when you're trying to pitch your deal and get people to invest. There's no easy solution for I'm the Man, but the best idea is to try and cut them off as politely as you can and get on with telling people why your deal is a good deal and why should they invest in it. The third guy that you're going to meet at the question and answer phase, I'm going to have to tell you about in the next segment, because we're basically just out of time here. We're going to have to go to commercial break. It is Mike Manahan, Biz Rap Radio. We're talking about how you raise money for your business, and we will be back right after these messages. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Mike Manahan. Again, thanks for being with me today. We are talking today about raising money for your business. How do you raise capital for your business? And as I mentioned in the previous segment, I authored the book, Secrets to Raising Capital, How to Get the Money You Need for Your Business the Fastest and Easiest Way Possible. You can pick it up on Amazon.com. But we were talking in the last segment about the importance of how you answer questions and some of the characters you will meet when you pitch your deal in person, when you're trying to raise money and you're talking to people. We talked about the questionator. This is the guy that asks a million questions, most of which are irrelevant. We talked about I'm the Man. This is the guy that really doesn't have a question, but he wants to talk all about himself and his contacts and who he knows, and drop names on you. And the third guy we didn't get a chance to talk about is the guy I'll call the Wall Street Kid. Now, the Wall Street Kid doesn't have to be from Wall Street, and he doesn't have to be a kid, but basically the character traits of this individual doesn't want to listen to your presentation. He doesn't want any structure. He's usually very hurried and rushed, and what he wants to do is fire questions at you. And this can be sometimes disconcerting. It can get people a little ruffled under the feathers, make you lose your composure. If you're giving a presentation and somebody keeps interrupting you, then you're better off to not try to give your presentation, but to just answer their questions. And the best thing is just to say, well, look, rather than me giving a formal presentation to you, why don't you just ask questions, and I'll just answer the questions that you feel important. So watch out for those three guys: questionator, I'm the Man, and the Wall Street Kid when you're answering questions. Now, the other thing you need to know about answering questions is that how you answer questions is exceedingly important in terms of how you are perceived. And sometimes business owners think they should have the answer to every question that comes up. Uh, but there might be instances where, quite frankly, um, that you don't have the answer to those questions. So you need to be honest. If you don't know something, if you've forgotten it or you haven't considered it, then just be honest and say, you know what, I'm not quite sure. I don't have that information at my fingertips. Let me get back to you. But you got to be honest. Don't try and make something up on the fly. If you do, you may get caught. Also, remember, there's a big difference between facts and opinions. If you start to give your opinions as facts, you will lose credibility. And one of the most common ones I see is business owners who think they know what motivates their customer, but have absolutely no empirical evidence for that. So they'll say, oh, well, my customers buy my product because... And then you say, well, how do you know that? What research have you done? What surveys have you done? Have you done any market research? Have you hired a market research firm? Have you sent out a survey to all of your customers? Oh, no, we just know that because we're in the business. No, you don't. Do not make the mistake of believing that you know the motivation of your customers or the motivation of anybody else. You've got to have empirical evidence. That takes research. Thirdly, make sure you're answering the question. I've seen so many times somebody asks a question at a presentation, and the chief executive officer of the company that's trying to raise money doesn't answer the question. Most likely because he or she did not understand the question. So clarity is very important. I recommend that if a question isn't really, really precise, that you rephrase the question and feed it back to the person who asked the question so you can be clear you are answering the question that has actually been asked. Keep your answers brief. You don't need to talk for 10 minutes to answer a question. You don't need to tell somebody who wants to know the time how to build a watch. Make your answers as brief as possible for two reasons. First of all, if you explain too much, your audience will tune out. You'll bore them. Secondly, a short answer provides good opportunity for the follow-up question. That way the person who is asking the question can really engage with you in more of what I would call a conversation rather than just a Q&A period. And by the way, conversations are great because that builds rapport with the people you're talking to, and that is going to be extremely important. Remember, these people are looking at risking their money with you, and at the end of the day, you can do all the financial analysis you want. You can talk to them about return on investment and security and how big your market is and how high your profit margins are and why everybody needs your product. But at the end of the day, they're going to put up their money because they trust you. And if you cannot work on building trust and rapport, then you are going to be in trouble. Now, some of the other questions that you're going to get asked about is competition. It's everybody likes to think a lot of businesses like to think they don't have competition, but you do have competition, so you need to put it in perspective. You need to be able to be honest about who your competition is, and even if you don't know specific companies, at least what other types of companies compete to your business. So if you're opening a hamburger joint, steakhouse is your competition because somebody could choose, do I buy hamburgers tonight or do I buy steaks? So be honest about who your competition is, and instead try and talk about why you think you can beat your competition, why your alternative is better for the customer than what your competition might provide. Probably the final question, and maybe this is kind of the golden rule of raising money. Never, never, never argue with the money guys. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in the process of raising capital, whether you're raising it from high net worth individuals or whether you're raising it from some institutional investor, a fund, or what have you, angel investors, it doesn't matter. These people are going to have comments about your business and about what they think you should be doing in your business. Now, you've thought out your business plan, you've got it all down, you know exactly what you're doing, and they're going to come along and say, well, why don't you do this? And the inclination for entrepreneurs and CEOs of companies is to defend themselves. Somebody says, well, why don't you, you're selling your product in the United States, why don't you sell it in Canada? And maybe you haven't thought about selling it in Canada, or maybe you have a good reason for not selling it in Canada. But you know what? Don't argue with the money guys. That is the golden rule. Never, never, never argue with the money guys. If they have a suggestion, if they have an idea, no matter how screwball you may think it is, be gracious with their idea. Thank them for their idea. It's okay to say, you know what, we were thinking about doing that, or we just haven't thought about doing that yet, or that's going to be in phase 2 of our business plan. Don't argue with them and tell the money guys they're crazy and that's a stupid idea. The minute you do that, believe me, you're going to be branded as a person who's not easy to work with and who's also not open to new ideas. So don't argue with the money guys. If they disagree with some conclusion you've come to as to how your business can be rolled out, how you can take your business to market, don't argue with them. Explain yourself, and when they criticize what you're doing, say thank you for that input. We'll take another look at it. We'll consider it once again. We'll see if maybe we can't make sure we haven't made any mistakes in how we've developed our projections or developed our marketing strategy. So there you have it. Those are some ideas that you can use to help raise money for your business. Again, if you want my book, go to Amazon.com. It's The Secrets to Raising Capital, how to get the money you need for your business the fastest and easiest way possible, or send me an email with your address. For first 5 people, I will give you a free copy. Here at BizRap Radio, we're fixing the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. That's it for this week. Join me again next week for another edition of BizRap Radio.